The teardown of the Huawei Mate 80 Pro Max Wind Speed Edition fan is here. Only Huawei could make so many innovations on a fan. How is this fan dust-proof and waterproof? And how does it achieve active noise cancellation? Also, the cable routing and accessory placement of this Wind Speed Edition fan seem completely identical to the regular version's front and rear telephoto lenses. So, wouldn't buying a fan and replacing it in the regular version directly upgrade it to the Wind Speed Edition? Let's try it.
Holy cow, it matches! The Huawei Fanphone Mate 80 Pro Max Windspeed Edition just launched. I rushed to Shenzhen's biggest Huawei store and excitedly bought one to bring back and tear down for my buddies. So let's first compare the look of the Windspeed and regular versions. On the surface, these two phones are quite similar, but actually they're not completely identical. First, let's measure the thickness. The Speed Edition with its camera bump is 14.3mm. The standard Pro Max is even thinner at just 14.1mm. I thought it would be thinner after they changed the fan. And the port designs are also quite different. One has a right-angled bevel, the other just a single bevel. The three noise-cancelling diaphragm openings on the body are completely identical, not changed for this fan. So I wonder how loud this fan will be. We'll test it later. When we open the fan settings, there's a smart fan speed and an extreme fan speed. We'll compare its airflow with mainstream phones that have fans.
Well, first of all, we have this one, which is Huawei. Then, following that, we've got Red Magic. And finally, to wrap things up, there's the IQO 15 Ultra.
Then let's take a look at the fan noise performance of these three models. It sounds like Huawei doesn't have noise cancellation. We'll open it up later to take a look. I checked the processor. Both sides are the Kirin 9230 Pro, and the screen brightness when turned up to maximum is also identical, so it seems there's no difference except for the cooling fan. Let's compare it with Huawei using the S26 Ultra from an international competitor with its extra brightness turned on. The Huawei Mate 80 Pro Max's dual-layer OLED Linglong screen has truly incredible brightness, which offers a huge advantage for outdoor live streaming. Speaking of live streaming, the Fengchi Edition removed the 6.2x periscope telephoto. How big is its impact? Let's test it. Looking at the Spider-Man head texture from a distance, the 80 Pro Max with its 6.2x telephoto lens is indeed clearer. Now let's compare the heat dissipation effect with the regular Mate 80 Pro Max to see how it handles heating during long-term 4K 60 frames per second recording. Using our thermal imaging phone for a shot will be more intuitive. First, at the very beginning of recording, the standard version of this Mate 80 Pro Max actually has a lower temperature than the Windspeed Edition. At 5 minutes into recording, the Fengchi model sensed the body temp rise. It automatically turned on the fan. You can hear it. When recording reaches 30 minutes, you can see the thermal imaging difference is very obvious. Whether it's the core temperature or the peak temperature, there's a difference of 3 to 4 degrees. Don't underestimate this temperature difference, as it will significantly affect the live stream's frame rate. Okay, that's all for the exterior for now. How big is the internal difference between these two phones? Adding a fan, is it really worth the 500 yuan price difference? Let's not waste any more time and just start the teardown. Pause. Okay, we'll begin by taking apart the Fengchi Edition. Oh my god, guys, the amount of thermal paste applied here is just way too much. I've honestly never seen thermal paste applied this thick before. If we just look at its internal structure like this, you guys might not find it very intuitive. So let's take apart a regular Mate 80 Pro Max to do a side-by-side comparison. So honestly, Huawei's build quality is really good. You can see the back cover is entirely metal, and from the edge of the camera cutout, you can tell the whole back cover was actually milled directly from metal, which means the cost must have been very high. After removing both motherboard covers, if you look closely, you'll notice the fan isn't integrated with the body or motherboard, it's separate from the main chassis. Oh, this design is just like the IQO 15 Ultra or Honor Win we've previously torn down. Let's start by taking apart the fan. At the fan and port junction, you can see there's sealing glue, a waterproof layer. If we remove the fan, won't its waterproofing be gone? This makes me feel a little reluctant to disassemble it. Okay, let's just go ahead and pry up the fan. Now let's take a good look at the fan unit itself. I have to say, the fan that Huawei made really has a premium feel to it. Oh my goodness. You see, between this fan module and the lens mount, there's this soft, waterproof adhesive. Once the screws tighten this adhesive, it then provides a waterproofing effect, and the overall airflow, just as we predicted, is quite similar to the Honor Win RT. Air enters from here, then follows an L-shaped route, blowing downwards, cooling the CPU, and simultaneously cooling the battery as well. But Huawei has gone a step further compared to Honor. Notice that this air duct uses cooling fins, which means the heat dissipation efficiency will be higher. The fan's position, as we saw in our previous teardown video of the Mate 80 Pro Max, is directly above the CPU's heat generating area. That's why the fan is placed here, replacing the 6.2x front and rear telephoto lens. So let's continue to investigate how this fan achieves dust and water resistance. Or if we look closely, the top of this air intake has a very fine mesh screen. The mesh holes are only 60 micrometers wide. What's more, the dust filter's outer layer has a chemical water repellent coating, so even if water touches this mesh, it'll just bounce off, it won't seep through. And the outer metal mesh also has holes that are Or it's just 330 micrometers, and that's how the dust and water resistance is achieved. Alright, let's remove this metal cover to see the fan's internal structure. Once opened, you can clearly see the mesh cover. This design is truly a Huawei innovation. Now, let's look at this pear-shaped fan. It uses a bionic wing turbofan technology, mimicking the bifurcated structure at the end of an owl's feather. You see at the very end of each louver's air outlet, there's a small short partition dividing the outlet into two halves. This design is actually to reduce turbulence. Simply put, this is the fan blade's opening, and this is the air vent. As the fan blade continuously passes by, if their openings were the same size, it would cause turbulence, generating a loud buzzing noise. If we directly reduce the entire air duct, it would cause uneven airflow and insufficient volume. So Huawei chose to directly set a small partition in the latter half of the air outlet, which both shrinks its volume and doesn't impact the airflow. After this reduction, its overall noise is significantly optimized. It's truly a very ingenious design. Oh, by the way, this fan also has a unique design. When it starts up, it actually reverses for a moment to clear out any dust. Let's plug it in and give it a try. Pretty clever, right? That's a really thoughtful idea. Now that we've seen the fan, let's take a look at what other differences there are. If you look closely, you'll notice that the original version has nothing in this spot, but the wind speed edition has added a small microphone right next to the fan. The function of this microphone is to collect the noise that's coming from the fan. After it picks up this sound, it's processed by the CPU for some noise reduction. Some viewers might be saying, but wasn't the fan's noise quite loud just a moment ago? Don't worry, the purpose of this microphone isn't actually to reduce the sounds we hear from outside, but rather, when this phone is live streaming or recording video, this microphone picks up the sound and then the CPU performs noise reduction on the videos we shoot or the live streams. In other words, the person on the other end of the phone will barely hear the fan's noise. This is a black technology, another innovation from Huawei. So looking at it, the main difference between these two devices lies in the periscope telephoto, with the 6.2x periscope replaced by a fan. If you like Huawei and prioritize gaming performance, I think you should choose the wind chasing version, but if gaming isn't a priority and you focus more on photography, then the standard Mate 80 Pro Max is still very cost effective. I checked the second-hand prices on Zhuanzhuan and it's only just over 6,900 yuan. Plus, Zhuanzhuan's phones undergo multiple rounds of official quality inspection, so the quality is guaranteed. Alright, so finally I want to do an experiment. Given that this fan and the periscope telephoto lens are identical in shape, a closer look reveals their cable interface positions are also completely identical. So could the standard version become the wind speed version just by buying this fan and then removing the lens and swapping it out? Let's test it out now. Let's put it on. Holy moly, this shape is absolutely identical. It can't actually work, can it? Alright, let's go ahead and connect the ribbon cable to give it a try. Oh, for crying out loud. The ribbon cable connectors aren't the same length. What was I even thinking, my friend? What a